Most people believe their financial problems come from low income. As a financial and investment educator, I can tell you this belief is misleading. The real issue is not how much money you earn, but how little control you have over it. Living without a financial plan means allowing randomness to shape your future. When there is no plan, money is spent emotionally. Decisions are driven by urgency, comparison, and social pressure rather than intention. You may work hard every day, yet remain financially stagnant because effort without direction leads nowhere. Income becomes busy movement, not progress. A financial plan gives money a purpose. It establishes priorities, boundaries, and long-term goals. It answers essential questions. What am I protecting? What am I building? What kind of life must my money support in the future? Without clear answers, spending becomes reactive and saving becomes inconsistent. As a teacher, I emphasize that wealth is not created by motivation. It is created by structure. People who build wealth rely on systems, not willpower. Budgeting, saving targets, emergency funds, and investment strategies are not signs of limitation. They are tools of discipline and clarity. Without a plan, every financial shock feels like a crisis. Emergencies become disasters because there is no preparation. Opportunities are missed because there is no liquidity. Over time, this creates stress, fear, and dependence on the next paycheck. Money without a plan behaves like a student without a curriculum. Active, busy, but directionless. If you want control over your financial future, the first step is not earning more. The first step is deciding where your money is supposed to take you. This foundation matters because without it, the habits discussed next will quietly sabotage everything you earn. Once a financial plan exists, the next habit determines whether that plan survives or collapses. The habit of spending before saving. This is where many people fail, not because they lack discipline, but because they follow a dangerous order. They spend first and hope to save later. In practice, saving later rarely happens. Expenses expand to fill income, and whatever remains is usually insignificant. As a financial educator, I see this pattern across all income levels. The problem is not how much people earn, but how they prioritize their money. Saving is not what you do with leftover money. Saving is what you do before money is allowed to be spent. When savings are treated as optional, they disappear. When they are treated as mandatory, they become automatic. The sequence matters more than the size. Saving first is not about fear or deprivation. It is about self-respect and responsibility. When you save first, you are acknowledging that your future matters more than momentary comfort. You are building a buffer between yourself and uncertainty. That buffer reduces stress, improves decision-making, and creates confidence. People who spend first live in constant reaction mode. Emergencies feel overwhelming because there is no margin for error. Opportunities feel unreachable because there is no available capital. Over time, this creates dependency on the next paycheck and anxiety about the future. Those who save first think differently. They plan ahead. They make calmer financial decisions. They are prepared for shocks and positioned for growth. This habit transforms money from a source of stress into a tool of control. Without saving first, a financial plan remains theoretical. It looks good on paper but fails in reality. Saving is the bridge between intention and outcome. Without it, every plan collapses under daily spending behavior. This habit directly connects to the next issue. Because even when people start saving, many still misunderstand what real progress looks like. After people begin saving, a new misunderstanding often appears. The belief that higher income automatically creates wealth. As a financial and investment educator, I must be very clear. Income and wealth are fundamentally different. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you keep, grow, and protect over time. Many individuals increase their income only to find themselves no more secure than before. This happens because spending rises alongside earnings. Better lifestyle, bigger obligations, and higher expectations consume every additional dollar. The result is financial motion without progress. The numbers are larger, but the position is the same. This habit is especially dangerous because it feels like success. Promotions, bonuses, and business growth create the illusion of advancement, while underlying financial stability remains weak. I have taught professionals with impressive salaries who live paycheck to paycheck, and modest earners who quietly build strong financial foundations. Wealth is created through control, not appearance. It requires limiting lifestyle expansion, directing surplus towards savings and investments, and allowing time to compound results. Without discipline, higher income simply magnifies poor habits. As a teacher, I emphasize that chasing income without structure leads to exhaustion. People work harder, feel more pressure, and experience more stress, yet remain financially fragile. True progress comes from increasing the gap between what you earn and what you spend, not from increasing earnings alone. When income is misunderstood as wealth, people delay long-term planning. They assume security will arrive later, after the next raise or opportunity. Unfortunately, later rarely comes without intentional action. Understanding this distinction is critical, because once income is no longer mistaken for wealth, a deeper vulnerability becomes visible: the risk of relying on a single source of income. Once people understand the difference between income and wealth, they begin to notice another serious weakness: dependence on a single source of income. This habit feels safe because it appears stable, yet it is one of the most fragile financial positions a person can have. As a financial educator, I remind my students that a single income is not security, it is exposure. Your job, business, or primary income stream exists within an economic system you do not control. Companies restructure, markets shift, technology replaces roles, and unexpected events can interrupt income overnight. When all financial survival depends on one source, any disruption becomes a crisis. Savings are drained, stress increases, and decision-making becomes emotional. Even high earners are vulnerable if they rely on only one paycheck. Stability based on one pillar collapses easily. Wealthy individuals think differently. They focus on diversification, not comfort. Multiple income streams do not exist to create luxury at first. They exist to create protection. Side businesses, investments, dividends, royalties, or digital assets form layers of resilience. This does not mean working endlessly. It means building systems that continue producing value beyond your direct labor. When income is diversified, pressure decreases. Fear of job loss weakens. Choices become strategic rather than desperate. As a teacher, I emphasize that time is limited, but systems scale. One income ties your future to a fixed schedule. Multiple incomes allow growth without proportional effort. Over time, this difference becomes enormous. Relying on one income keeps people obedient to circumstances. Diversification creates leverage and freedom. Without it, financial planning remains vulnerable to forces outside your control. This realization naturally leads to the next habit. Because once people recognize the need for growth beyond one income, fear often stops them from taking the next step. Once people realize that relying on a single source of income is risky, the next logical step is growth. However, this is where fear quietly takes control. Many people understand that investing is necessary, yet they delay action because they are afraid of losing money. As a financial educator, I can say clearly that fear is one of the most expensive emotions in personal finance. This fear often comes from a lack of understanding. People associate investing with gambling, market crashes, or stories of failure. They focus on short-term fluctuations instead of long-term trends. As a result, they choose inaction, believing it is safer than taking risk. What they fail to recognize is that doing nothing is also a decision. Money that is not invested loses value over time due to inflation. Purchasing power slowly erodes, even though the account balance appears unchanged. In this way, fear guarantees loss while pretending to provide safety. Investing, when done correctly, is not about chasing quick profits. It is about participating in long-term economic growth. Diversification, time horizon, and discipline reduce risk far more effectively than avoidance ever could. Educated investors accept volatility as the price of growth. I teach my students that confidence comes from knowledge, not courage. The goal is not to eliminate fear, but to replace ignorance with understanding. Small, consistent investments build experience and trust in the process. Avoiding investing keeps people dependent on active income alone. It prevents wealth from compounding and restricts future options. Over time, fear becomes a habit that quietly steals opportunity. As this habit persists, another pattern emerges. Even those who begin investing often sabotage themselves in a different way, by using money to project success rather than to build stability. After fear begins to fade and investing starts to make sense, another destructive habit often appears: living for status instead of stability. This habit is subtle, socially rewarded, and financially dangerous. As a financial educator, I see it repeatedly among people who want to look successful before they actually are. Status-driven spending is not about need. It is about image. People buy expensive items, upgrade lifestyles, and adopt financial behaviors to signal progress to others. The problem is that these signals are often funded by fragile foundations. Minimal savings, high debt, and unstable cash flow. When money is used to impress, it stops working for the future. Luxury without stability creates pressure. Fixed expenses rise, flexibility disappears, and financial stress becomes constant. What looks like success on the outside often hides anxiety, dependence, and fear of income disruption. True financial strength is invisible. It prioritizes emergency funds, manageable obligations, and growing investments. Stability does not seek validation. It seeks durability. Wealth built quietly lasts longer than wealth displayed loudly. As a teacher, I remind my students that comparison is one of the most expensive habits they can adopt. Measuring progress against others distorts judgment. Everyone's financial reality is different. Yet social pressure pushes people toward the same visible milestones: cars, homes, lifestyle upgrades, regardless of readiness. Living for status delays wealth building. It shifts focus from long-term security to short-term approval. Over time, this habit locks people into higher costs and fewer options. Decisions become reactive, driven by maintaining appearance rather than improving position. Stability creates freedom. Status creates obligation. Understanding this difference is critical, because once expenses grow beyond control, many people turn to an even more dangerous solution to maintain their lifestyle. When lifestyle expenses grow faster than income, many people turn to debt as a solution. At first, this feels manageable and even convenient. Credit cards, loans, and installment plans create the illusion that financial pressure has been relieved. In reality, it has only been postponed. As a financial and investment educator, I teach that debt itself is not the enemy. The purpose of debt is what matters. When debt is used to acquire assets or increase earning capacity, it can support growth. However, when debt is used to fund consumption, it becomes a long-term burden. Consumer debt steals from future income. Interest works against you, requiring more effort tomorrow for money already spent today. Over time, this creates a cycle where increasing portions of income are dedicated to past decisions rather than future opportunities. People who rely on debt for lifestyle often lose financial flexibility. Monthly obligations become fixed, leaving little room for emergencies or investment. Stress increases, and financial decisions become reactive. Instead of planning growth, energy is spent managing repayment. I emphasize to my students that debt should expand options, not reduce them. The liability does not help you generate income or improve long-term stability. It is quietly weakening your position. The danger of consumption-based debt is that it feels normal while slowly eroding control. As debt accumulates, many people justify it by telling themselves they will learn more about money later. Unfortunately, postponing financial education allows the damage to deepen. This leads directly to the next destructive habit: ignoring the knowledge required to make sound financial decisions. As debt grows and financial pressure increases, many people make a critical mistake. They avoid learning about money. Instead of seeking understanding, they delay education, hoping their situation will somehow improve on its own. As a financial educator, I can say that ignorance is one of the most expensive habits a person can maintain. Money operates by rules whether you understand them or not. Cash flow, interest, inflation, compounding, and risk affect everyone equally. When these concepts are ignored, decisions are made blindly. People rely on opinions, trends, or advice from equally uninformed sources, which often leads to costly mistakes. Financial education is not about becoming an expert. It is about becoming competent. Understanding how money moves allows you to evaluate opportunities and avoid traps. Without this knowledge, even good income and strong effort can produce poor results. I often remind my students that the education system teaches people how to work for money, but rarely how money works for them. This gap creates dependence. Those who do not understand finance remain vulnerable to manipulation. Debt and poor financial products. Avoiding financial education also reinforces fear. The unknown always feels dangerous. When people refuse to learn, they remain stuck, convinced that investing, planning, and wealth building are only for others. In reality, knowledge is the equalizer. Once financial education begins, a new challenge appears. Even informed individuals can sabotage themselves by focusing too much on the present and ignoring the power of time. Once people begin to understand money, another habit often undermines their progress: short-term thinking. Knowledge alone does not create wealth if decisions are still driven by immediate comfort. As a financial educator, I see many individuals who know what they should do, yet consistently choose what feels good now. Short-term thinking prioritizes instant gratification over future security. It encourages impulsive spending, frequent lifestyle upgrades, and avoidance of delayed rewards. The problem is not desire itself, but impatience. Wealth is built through time, discipline, and consistency, qualities that short-term thinking actively resists. This habit distorts financial decision-making. People evaluate choices based on today's convenience rather than tomorrow's consequences. They underestimate the power of compounding and overestimate the importance of immediate pleasure. Small daily decisions repeated over years quietly shape financial outcomes. I teach my students that time is the most powerful variable in finance. Compounding rewards those who start early and stay consistent. When short-term thinking dominates, time is wasted. Opportunities are delayed, investments are postponed, and progress slows dramatically. Short-term thinking also weakens resilience. Without long-term preparation, setbacks feel devastating. A single unexpected expense can undo months of effort. Planning only for today leaves no margin for uncertainty. True financial growth requires patience. It means accepting that meaningful results do not appear quickly. Those who think long-term make calmer decisions, experience less stress, and build stronger foundations. They understand that discipline today creates freedom tomorrow. When short-term thinking is replaced with long-term perspective, one final obstacle often remains: a belief that change has come too late. After understanding money, building discipline, and learning to think long-term, many people still remain stuck because of one final belief: that it is already too late to change. As a financial and investment educator, I can say this belief is not only false, it is destructive. People convince themselves that they started too late, made too many mistakes, or missed their opportunity. This mindset becomes a convenient excuse to stop trying. Instead of facing the discomfort of change, they accept stagnation as reality. Unfortunately, this belief guarantees that nothing improves. Financial progress does not require perfection. It requires consistency. The past cannot be changed, but the direction forward can. Every habit discussed in this series proves one truth: outcomes are shaped by repeated behavior, not by age or timing. I have seen individuals rebuild their finances after decades of poor decisions, and others destroy theirs despite early advantages. The difference was never time, it was action. Waiting for the perfect moment only delays progress. The best time to improve your financial life was yesterday. The second best time is now. Believing it is too late also ignores the power of compounding going forward. Even small improvements, when sustained, create meaningful change. Saving a little more, investing consistently, reducing unnecessary expenses. These actions reshape the future over time. This final habit connects all the previous ones. Without belief in change, planning is ignored. Saving is delayed. Investing is avoided. Long-term thinking collapses. Hope disappears. Control your habits and you regain control over your money. Control your money and you regain control over your future. Your financial life is not defined by where you started, but by the decisions you make from this moment forward.